everybody, great to be with you again. And as you all know, education is very near and dear to my heart. And today we have a good friend of mine with us. Her name is Lynn Taylor. She's also known as the Common Core Diva. And she is just relentless in following the abominations coming out of our Congress, the horrors coming out of Washington, D.C. when it comes to education. So we're very happy to have Lynn with us. Lynn, thank you so much for being with us. And tell us a little bit about, I mean, there's so much going on now on education. I know we talked a little bit about the Supreme Court ruling that just came down on religious private schools. So thank you for being with us, and tell us a little bit about your thoughts on this Supreme Court ruling.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Alex, for having me on today. It's an honor to be with you and to see you again. I just wanted to say that my thoughts on the Supreme Court decision are that it was a terrible strike against our nation because we're going to be using public funds to go for private schools, and we know that's a public-private partnership. And as we know, Alex, those are extremely un-American. And so it also concerns me that you have the restrictions from the government about what goes on in religious schools and religious activities. And we're seeing more and more attacks on Christianity. So my concern is with this global push that we're seeing towards anything that is un-American, what does this mean for education in those religious schools? It also means that those education savings accounts that are nothing but just loaded data mine, they're nothing but data mining our kids through where the funds go. And so that's another concern. So it's very, very troubling that we're seeing such un-American practices for pay for success now be attached to private education. And how is this going to impact our homeschooling as well?
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. And I haven't reviewed the Supreme Court ruling in depth, but I definitely share some of those concerns. I tell people I was living in Sweden when they did the same scam, right? The government money for the private schools was like the cheese in the mousetrap, and all the little mice ran up and they ate the cheese, and as soon as they bit the cheese, boom, the trap closed, and then they said, "Ha! Now you all have to teach the government's curriculum. Now you all have to teach LGBT stuff to first graders. Definitely no prayer, definitely no Bible, because after all, public money is involved." So I share some of those concerns big time. I know that there have been some people saying that this ruling is very, very narrow. It's not a voucher program. They're not going to start giving tax money to private religious schools. All it is like a way to deduct something from your taxes. So, it'll be interesting to see what the fallout is from this. But I definitely share those concerns, Lynn. And I'm right now reaching out to experts to try to figure out what the deal is. But, it's happening in Florida already, Lynn. We have a voucher system here, and now all the big newspapers around the state, obviously they're all run by anti-Christian bigots, saying, "Oh, how dare Christian schools that are receiving voucher money teach children that the Bible is true, or that evolution is fake, or how dare they refuse to hire a guy wearing a dress and a wig to teach kindergartners discrimination against transgenders." So I think we're definitely going to see some big moves in that direction. And that may be the end of our independent private Christian schools, except maybe the ones that refuse to take government money. So I
Well,
definitely share those concerns, Lynn. Go ahead.
no, that's true. But also, we've got a lot of churches who are taking federal funds. And so we have to be careful about this. I know with this particular decision, it's going to help bring in those freedom scholarships that DeVos and Trump have been, wanting to put into action. And those are what we call poison carrot sticks because it dangles, kind of like you were saying with the mouse and the cheese, it dangles this illusion of freedom in front of the parent. And we know with the Every Student Succeeds Act, Alex, on page 17, when it said that all education had to be aligned to the same thing, this decision helps grease that wheel. So it's very, very concerning. And you also have to factor in it's going to change the IRS tax codes that we operate under. So again, we're going to see public-private partnerships. And we know, you and I both know, as well as a lot of Americans, that's fascism.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm so glad you can share this perspective with us, Lynn, because I think in conservative world, there these voices really aren't heard as often as they should be. And I know Charlotte Iserby has been sounding the alarm about this, and you and Anita Hogue and some of the others out there. But mainstream conservatism, it's all oh woohoo! Now we have more money so that people can liberate their children from government school. And hey, I'm all about liberating children from government school, but we don't want to
Right.
sacrifice the independence of our private and our Christian schools. It's just such an enormous danger. Lynn, you also had mentioned something about an executive order that Trump just recently signed on education. Can you tell us a little bit about your concerns on that executive order? What does it do, and why should people maybe be concerned about this?
Okay, well, thank you again. It is a executive order that he signed that extends the National Workforce Council for America. And that was created through another executive order instead of going through Congress. Okay, so again, we're bypassing the legal system, the way the Constitution was set up to be able to create things like this. It's also getting a national level for workforce alignment in education to go with that competency based education, the outcome based education, the career tech, the STEM that goes along with the United Nations as well. All this is rolled into it, and he is promoting it because he wants Americans to know we need to have more skill based workers. Well, what that does in education, instead of you having academics, Alex, to be able to build that strong foundation so you can go and get a job somewhere. It is streamlining your education to nothing but a career. So it's workforce prep in our K through 12 system. It's also in our private school system. It's available to homeschoolers as well. So again, we're seeing not an American initiative. We're seeing a global model that's been played out in Germany, in Russia, in Prussia, in Estonia. And we could go on and on with the countries' names that are doing this because everyone from cradle to grave has to be a working, productive citizen. So if you don't have that skill base set, you're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Lynn. And it's so important for people to understand. What we're witnessing now is the emergence of a global educational system. And the UN has been pretty transparent about this. I mean, they've been passing resolutions saying we can't have all these unregulated private schools teaching whatever they feel like to the children. We've all got to have these global standards. And your average American conservative is just clueless about this. So thank you for highlighting these issues, Lynn. Just a quick question on Donald Trump. Do you think he's being given bad advice by his advisors? Do you think he's on board with this agenda? What are your personal feelings on why President Trump maybe isn't doing the things that a lot of us wish he were doing? I mean, he campaigned on some really great stuff. We're going to get rid of Common Core. We're going to think about abolishing the Department of Education. But instead we haven't seen that. We've seen more school choice things and stuff. What do you think's the deal? Is he getting bad advice? Is he part of the cabal? What are your thoughts?
Well, based on research, Alex, I'm going to go out there and say he is part of the system. And I base that on research because there have been too many things that are coincidences. I know he's also getting very bad advice. So I think it's both, okay? I really do. This USMCA, I wanted to point out, also stresses skill based labor or skill
Yeah.
based education. And depending on how much education level you have, Alex, as to what kind of job you will be able to get under the USMCA. It also puts international committees over education, over labor, over everything you could possibly think of. So to me, that is a very bad thing for America. We know that right now, between the Republicans and the Democrats, we're not seeing any difference in agenda when it comes to education. School choice is a farce. It absolutely is. Every student succeeds at pretty much wipe that out. And now we're going to see, especially with this shift for workforce based education and now these, religious exemptions, if you will, we're going to see a lot more damage done to our children and to the rest of us because, again, this is cradle through grave. We're going to see a lot of damage happen to our American system.
Yeah, you mentioned the Every Student Succeeds Act. That's one that I spent quite a bit of time writing when it came out, and that was Republicans. I mean, it was Republicans who passed it, and they acted like it was going to return control over education to the states and the local governments. What a
Nope.
load of baloney! I mean, a total fraud, a total lie. The Obama administration, after after the bill was passed through Congress, they're bragging, "Oh, it's a Christmas miracle, and our whole education agenda is now, for the first time in history, enshrined into federal law." So those Republican lawmakers who deceived their constituents, some of them are gone already, but Alexander Lamar, of course, gets a dishonorable mention. So many of these Republicans that deceived their constituents and deceived the American people. It's just terrifying, Lynn. And so when you get to solutions, what does your average person do about this? Do we reform the system? What does a parent do faced with these terrifying choices? Where do we go from here, Lynn? What do you think?
I think we're going to need some radical actions. I really do. And for example, I was doing some research for my latest article, and I happened upon a House Ed and Labor member meeting. And in it, they were saying that the federal government is way too dependent on our property taxes for education. So that's what our property taxes are going for, is education. It's not going for infrastructure changes or any of this other stuff. So if the federal government is now admitting that that's where our property taxes are going, I would say we would need to really start at the local level about our property taxes and say, no more, not on my watch. You cannot take this money and misuse it against my children, the community's children, our nation, against our Constitution.
Yeah. It's quite the situation we find ourselves in, Lynn. And so, on this Common Core issue, I know Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos has said repeatedly that Common Core is not an issue anymore. Common Core is not around anymore. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's a bald-faced lie. But in your experience, you're the Common Core diva. Is Common Core really gone? Should parents still be concerned about Common Core? And what are some of the problems with it in the last 3 or 4 minutes that we have left, Lynn?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Common Core is still alive and thriving. It's increasing every single day. It's dumbing down more and more children. It's now in higher education as well. It's in the career tech high schools that we're seeing in our communities. It's in our libraries. It's in our museums. It is everywhere we go. And part of the reason why is because it's a way to bring in those sustainable development goals, which was the goal all along. It was never about, oh, we're going to improve education, especially English and math. It was never about that. It was all about bringing in those sustainable development goals. And STEM was the change agent by which it would be something that felt like we were doing for America from Americans instead of saying, oh, no, this is from the UN, because they knew if we said, okay, we're not going to take it from the UN, but we can do it to ourselves. So, it's all a bunch of smoke and mirrors, what it is. And yes, Betsy DeVos has lied one more time. She lied yesterday when she said that religious discrimination was dead in education. That's really not going to happen. I really think we're going to see more persecution, especially against Christians.
Yeah, I think that's what's coming, Lynn. If we don't change directions quickly and radically, I mean, it's just becoming so obvious now. They're coming for the Christian schools. They're coming for the homeschoolers. Harvard, as you know, is now plotting this major, full-out war on home education, educational liberty. So we've got some tough times ahead of us, Lynn, in the fight for educational liberty. We've got a couple minutes left now. What do you recommend to your average person for say someone wants to get involved in the battle to preserve educational liberty? Where would you recommend that they start? And then where can people learn more? How can people follow your excellent work, Lynn?
Oh, well, thank you so much. I would say start by knowing what's in your community, not just your school, okay? Because through the Every Student Succeeds Act, Alex, communities are being held over a barrel, just like the states, for total alignment. So know what's in your community. Start going to those school board meetings. Start going to those city meetings, because again, it's not just in your schools. It is everywhere. Know what's in the budget. Find line by line budgets. Get together with like-minded people. Start speaking up, speaking out, holding people accountable. If we need to go as radical as withholding taxes, I say let's do it. We've got to stunt this system somehow. And as far as how you can find me, my blog is commoncorediva.com. I also have a donate button, so if anyone feels so led that they would like to financially contribute to my work, because I do not make money at what I do, this is a gift of love to my nation and for the Lord's glory. You can also find me on Twitter at Common Core Diva. Parlor is brand new, and that's at CC Diva. You can find me on Facebook, Common Core Diva, or U.S. Parent Call to Action. I'm on localactivist.org, on MeWe, and finally, USA.life.
Excellent. Lynn, thank you so much for everything you're doing. Thank you for your dedication to our children, to our nation, to God. It's so important. I wish we had a whole lot more people in America like you with that kind of passion. So thank you, Lynn. Folks out there, you heard it. Lynn has given us a lot to think about. We have some very serious problems we're going to have to deal with. And this is not just, a minor issue. Education, as you guys know, transcends all of it. I mean, if we hope to maintain our free constitutional republic, it's going to have to involve dealing with education, folks. So go check out Lynn's blog and her social media presence. Make sure you like, share, subscribe this video, hit that little bell so that you'll get notified when we put out new videos. Thank you all once again, and God bless.